Hello students, this is Mr. Muncy. Hope you're all well. I'm introducing you to Chapter 10, Section 1. It's called Circles and Circumference. And most of this is really just a vocabulary lesson, and I think you guys are probably familiar with most of this, but we want to be fair and introduce it to you properly. So starting with circles, when I teach circles to my students, I ask them to define it, and I get all sorts of interesting answers, like they'll tell me a circle is a shape with 360 degrees. So I draw something like this and say, so that's a circle. And they say, well, it's a shape that has no sides. So I go like this, and we go back and forth for a while. And eventually I'll ask somebody to come to the board and put a point that's 2 inches away from this one. So somebody comes up with a ruler and the marker and puts a point down. And then I ask somebody else to put a point 2 inches away from point A. So somebody else comes up and puts a point 2 inches to the left. And somebody else puts a point 2 inches above point A. And then I ask someone else to find another one, and they go 2 inches below, or 2 inches this way, or 2 inches that way. And if we were to get every point on this paper that is 2 inches away from A, every single point on the paper 2 inches away from A, that would be a circle. So a circle is just all of the points on a plane, two-dimensional, all of the points on a two-dimensional surface that are the same distance away from a given point. And that given point is called the center of the circle. So when you want to name a circle, it's named by the center. So if the center of the circle is B, we would call it circle B. The symbol for circle is this. So the way it's going to be written in your book would be circle B, referring to this circle. So some more vocabulary. If you take any 2 points on a circle, like this one, and connect them to form a segment, that is called a chord. I could have made a shorter chord if I had chosen 2 points closer together. I could have made a longer chord if I had chosen 2 points further apart on the circle. The longest chord that we can draw in a circle, as you know, is called the diameter, passing right through the center. So that's the diameter of the circle. Another word I'm sure you're familiar with is the segment that connects the center of the circle to any point on the circle. That's the radius. And because of our definition, any radius we draw in a circle is going to be congruent to any other radius that we draw. So that's a radius. Notice the diameter that I drew is made up of 2 collinear radii. So that means the length of one diameter is equal to the length of 2 radii. If the diameter is 6, each radius is 3. If the radius is 5, we know the diameter is 10, that sort of thing. And also the word circumference is referring to the length around a circle. So it's sort of like perimeter, but perimeter is for polygons, and a circle is not a polygon because it's not made of segments. And if we had more time than YouTube's going to allow me, I'd tell you more about this, but for now I'm just going to say, because I have to keep my videos under 15 minutes, if you picture this circle as a park, and on day 1 you walk across the park, and on day 2 you walk around the park, on day 2, you've clearly walked further than you have on day 1, and something to ask yourself is, do you know how much further you would have walked? Would that be twice as far? And you can pause the video if you want to think about that, but the answer is, it's a little more than 3 times longer around a circle than it is across the circle. So the circumference of a circle divided by its diameter is always the same number, and that's the number that we call pi. Pi is an irrational number, cannot be written as a decimal without rounding off because there's no end to it and there's no repeating pattern, so it's called an irrational number. It's approximately 3.14, but those decimals actually never end. And all it really is the circle's circumference divided by diameter. So if we take this little equation and cross multiply, we get a formula for circumference. Circumference times 1 is circumference, and diameter times pi is diameter times pi. So that's a formula for how to find the length around a circle. It's diameter times pi. And earlier we said that one diameter is equal to 2 radii. So I could also write this formula like this, that the circumference is 2 times pi times the radius, and that's because 2 times a radius is the diameter, and then that number is also multiplied by pi. So there's some introductory vocabulary for you about circles. 2 more quick terms, then we're going to look at a few problems. Circles that are exactly the same size, circles with the same length radius, are called congruent circles. And circles with the same center but different radii are called concentric circles. Concentric because they have the same center. You may come across that word in your textbook. So, a few problems. I'm going to encourage you to pause the video after you look at each one before I explain them. So the first one, find the circumference of circle G. Here's circle G. Radius is 7. Why don't you pause? All right. Sort of a trick question, but not really. It's a legitimate, fair question. If I fill in my radius of 7, then I get 2 times pi times 7. I get 14 pi, and the units is centimeters, and that is it. We do not round it off. So I am guessing that a lot of people got something like 43.98, but remember we said pi never ends as a decimal. There's no way to write it exactly without rounding off. So unless the problem says round off, or unless it's a real life problem, in which case we would round off, we leave it in terms of pi. Speaking of rounding, let me show you on the calculator. Hope you can see this okay. If you have a scientific calculator, somewhere on there there's going to be a pi button, and that's the button you want to use when you're typing in pi. It shows a lot more digits than 3.14, and it actually has many, many more than even what the screen is showing. So it's a lot more precise. So if we were rounding this off, let's say to the nearest hundredths, that would be the way to type it in, 43.98. What you don't want to type in is 14 times 3.14, because that's a little bit less accurate. That's going to tell you 43.96. So the pi button if you are rounding, but if you're not rounding, that's one less step, and it's more precise to just say 14 pi. Second problem, find the circumference of circle T. I'm going to add the right angle that should be there. You can pause if you want, see if you can figure that out before I do it. Here I go. The circumference of a circle we said is diameter times pi. If I could just figure out how long that diameter is, then I can do it. And from your Pythagorean theorem work, you could do 5 squared plus 12 squared equals x squared, and you could solve that Pythagorean equation. And that comes out to be 13. So the answer would be a diameter of 13. That means the circumference is 13 pi. If you want to find the radius of a circle and you know the circumference, we start with the formula, 2 pi r, and I'm going to fill in my circumference is 8. So 8 is 2 pi r, and I want to know what that radius is. So if I divide both sides by 2 pi to solve my equation, the 2's cancel and the pi's cancel. The radius is 8 divided by 2 pi. That simplifies to be 4 divided by 1 pi. So 4 over pi, because 8 over 2 is 4 over 1. So my answer would be 4 over pi inches. Again, notice I did not round. Last one. Take a look. And once you get a good shot of this, pause it and grab a piece of paper and try it. I'm going to jump right in now, assuming you've paused it. Circle X has a diameter of 22. That means that each radius is 11 in every direction. So this is 11 as well. Circle Y, radius is going to be 8, half of that diameter of 16. So for circle Y, Y to X is 8, and from Y to Z is 8. And the last diameter is 10, which means from Z to F is 5, and from Z to G is 5. The question is twofold. How long is it from E to Z? So that's going to be 11 plus another 11 plus 5. So EZ is 27 millimeters. And how long is it from Y to F? Well, from Y to Z is 8, and this piece is 5, that's got to be 3. Or we could look at it this way, X to F is 11. Part of it's 8. The missing piece must be 3. So that's going to be 3 millimeters. I know that was all fast, but I need to keep the video short. Good luck with your assignment. I'll see you in the next lesson.